Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Back to the Future, Back in Time, designed by Prospero Hall and published by Funko Games, who helped sponsor this video. Just like the classic movie this game is based on, Marty McFly has traveled back into his parents' past and now threatens his own existence. So with the help of Doc Brown, Jennifer, and the faithful Einstein, you need to get his parents to fall back in love, prepare the DeLorean for time travel, and ensure you're struck by lightning. How hard can that be? Well, let's find out. Join me at the table and we'll learn how to play. To set up, place the game board in the middle of the play area, and this will show a map of Hill Valley with 10 named spaces, each separated by white borders. In the school parking lot found in the top right-hand corner of the board, put the DeLorean on its start space here. You also assemble the clock dice tower and put it in the clock tower location, along with the Biff figure. Then add this Lorraine and George figure to the spaces with their houses. These are the 3 DeLorean park tiles, and you'll place each one onto the space of the board named here, just beneath its main title. This puts the gasoline at the South Shops, the hook at the clock tower, and the cable at Hill Valley High. This is the love meter, which you'll put nearby with the 6 photo pieces arranged face up, like this. Then add the love meter cube to the 0 start space. This is the turn tracker, which you place with the side face up, matching your number of players here. 3 on this side, or 2 to 4 for this side. We'll be setting up a 2-player game in this video, but no matter which side you use, you also put the turn cube nearby. Now shuffle and put face down the movement and opportunity decks, drawing 3 opportunities. Each indicates a space on the board where you're to put them, and anywhere within that space is fine. The cards with these backs make up the 3 different levels of trouble cards, and you should shuffle each separately and then put them face down nearby. This is the deck of double-sided item cards. These don't need to be shuffled. You just need to put them in their own deck. And also set out the 8 dice and 3 knockdown tokens. Now each player picks one of the 4 characters, Marty, Doc, Jennifer, or Einstein. You then take the related mat, character piece, and the matching 5 starter power tiles for your character as indicated by the name and color on their backs, which you'll place face up into the spaces for them here on your mat. The rest of the general power tiles, which have this back, should then be shuffled and set face down nearby. Finally, every player puts their character piece into the town square. And that's the setup. In Back to the Future, Back in Time, players will be working together to repair the DeLorean by finding the necessary parts, trying to help Marty's teenage parents fall in love, which the bully Biff will be constantly interfering with, and get the DeLorean to the clock tower in time so lightning can strike it. A player is randomly chosen to go first, and then starting with them and going clockwise around and around the table, the game is played over a series of turns, and each turn is broken into 2 parts starting with the turn tracker phase. The first time this phase is resolved, move this cube to the first space of the track based on the number of players. In a 4-player game, it would start here, but with 2 players, like we have, it goes here. From then on, anytime this phase is resolved in the future, you move the token 1 spot to the right. Whenever you enter a new space, like we did here, you resolve any of the symbols within that space. Here we see a trouble level 1 symbol, and on other spaces you might see a trouble level 2 or level 3 symbol. In any of those cases, you reveal the top card from the related deck, and then put it onto the space of the board that's mentioned here. If another trouble card is already on the board anywhere from a previous turn, then you discard it right now, because at most you can only have 1 trouble in play at a time. These will have some kind of ongoing effect that will make things more challenging for the players. For example, this one says that players can no longer move into or through town square. Though during this video I'll be ignoring that restriction so that I can show you certain examples. However, when you're playing, make sure you follow these rules. Later, we'll see how you can attempt to remove trouble cards from play, but now let's talk about this symbol, because if it's in the space that you move to during the turn tracker phase, it means that you draw and reveal the top card of the movement deck. Then you resolve any instructions showing on it here. This usually involves moving the Lorraine and/or George figures a certain number of spaces. For example, this one says to move Lorraine 2 spaces clockwise. So she would go here and then here. But do notice these symbols in the town square. They mean that George, Lorraine, and Biff can never enter this space, so when moving their figures, they'll only travel the spaces that go around the outside edge of the board. This movement card also shows two Biff symbols, and anytime you see one of these, it means you move Biff one space towards George or Lorraine, whoever is nearest. If Biff is equally near to both of them, then he will always move towards Lorraine instead. In this case, the card shows two Biff symbols, so he would move twice. However, as soon as he reaches a space with either Lorraine or George, he will stop there. And each other Biff symbol that you need to resolve instead moves the love meter down one space. Here we're on -1, and you can never go beyond -4, so any extra you might lose beyond that is just ignored. So that's how you resolve movement cards, and then after you put them into a face-up discard pile. In later turns, you might come to a space that shows this ×2 symbol, and when it's paired with a movement card, it just means that you draw and resolve one of them, and then when you're done, you draw and resolve a second immediately after. In some turn tracker phases, you may encounter this symbol, and that just means that you have to check the love meter. To do this, see which space the love meter cube is in. If it's any of these spaces showing a heart, then George and Lorraine are in love, and nothing happens, which is a good thing. If it's on any of the spaces going from 0 to 12, then they're not in love yet, and you flip any one face-up section of the photograph here face down, representing Marty and his siblings fading from future existence. If the cube is in any of these negative values, then they're really not in love, and you must flip over 2 sections of the photograph. Later on, we'll see how this cube's position can improve, but just keep in mind, even if George and Lorraine are in love, Biff might interfere and cause them to fall out of love again. Also, if all of the photo sections are ever face down, Marty's parents never end up falling in love, and he's erased from the timeline and all the players lose. Going back to the turn tracker, if this symbol shows a ×2, then it means you must perform the love check twice, doubling the number of photo sections you have to flip over, if any. And that's how the turn tracker phase works, and once that's completed, you now move to the action phase of your turn. Here you will perform a variety of actions, and each one requires you to use a certain number of these power tiles by flipping them face down. And once a tile has been flipped, you can't use it for other actions that round. But as long as you have some remaining, you can attempt and reattempt any actions you want. Anytime you flip over a tile, or as we'll see later, a card, it is considered exhausted and cannot be used again that turn. Every player starts with 5 power tiles, but over the course of the game, you may get new ones with different symbols. And as I go through the different actions, I'll use some of those other tiles in my examples to help explain their effects at the same time. One of the main actions you'll take is to move your character, and while some of the tiles are specifically for moving, all of them, even ones meant for other types of actions like rolling the dice, can instead also be used to move a certain number of spaces. For example, I could use this one to move up to 6 spaces, or this one to move up to 3. When moving your character, you can go in any direction except diagonally, even entering the same space multiple times during that move. And you don't have to move the entire distance that you're allowed, but if you stop to take another action, then you cannot use any other leftover movement you might have had. But don't forget, you can always flip over another of your tiles to take a new move action and keep going. Another option you have when moving is to escort George or Lorraine. Anytime you enter a space with either of them, you can then take one, but not both at the same time, as you go, dropping them off in any space you enter after that. Just remember though, George and Lorraine may not enter town square. Instead of using your power tiles to move your characters, ones that show dice can be used to attempt challenges. There are several different types of challenges that you'll encounter, but they all use the dice in the same general way, so we'll take a look at one of the challenge types in detail, and this will help explain how all the other ones work as well. If a player is in the same location as George and Lorraine, you can attempt an influence love challenge. To resolve any challenge, you need to roll dice, and the number of dice you can roll for that challenge is based on the power tiles that you choose to flip over. For example, if I flipped these 2 over, I would get to roll a red die and a blue die. Power tiles you gain later might show 2 dice in a single tile, and when flipping these you can roll either or both of the dice shown, and we'll see later why you might not want to roll both of them. Flipping a tile like this lets you pick a die of any type to roll during the challenge. No matter how many ability tiles you end up flipping over during a challenge, you may never roll more dice than the amount that are provided in the game. In other words, at most I could roll 2 of each color, which would be a total of 8 dice. Each die has a variety of symbols that can help in challenges, and each color is better at providing certain ones. However, all of the dice have 2 sides that show a lightning bolt, and this can represent any of the other 4 challenge symbols known as courage, speed, knowledge, and love, the symbols that you'll use to complete a challenge successfully. When you're ready to perform a challenge, you must first decide how many tiles you're going to commit to it, and then flip them over, collecting all the related dice. And then you roll them using the clock dice tower if you like. For the sake of this example, let's say that I got these results. Any dice showing a Biff symbol must be set aside. They're locked and cannot be re-rolled. But now if you like, you can re-roll any number of other dice that weren't locked to try to improve your result. In a love challenge, I want hearts, so maybe I would re-roll all of these. Now, you might get what you want, but you might also get more Biffs that you then have to set aside. Either way, you can re-roll as often as you like until you want to stop, or until all the dice are showing Biffs. Once you've decided that you're done re-rolling, you can use any power tiles you might have that allow you to modify results. For example, each of these would allow you to change each matching symbol on a single die to a wild symbol, which would let you then treat that result as any symbol. For example, I could flip over this tile to convert both of these hearts into wild symbols and then use those wilds as maybe speed symbols. Of course, in a love challenge, that wouldn't make any sense to do at all, so I won't. This tile lets you treat any one wild you have as 2 wilds, which can then be treated as either 2 of the same or 2 different symbols. This one lets you re-roll all Biffs that you have one time. And then after that re-roll, let's say we got something like this, then any new Biffs you have will stay locked, but then you can re-roll any non-Biff symbols you have as much as you like, just as before. Either way, once you're done rolling the dice, it's time to resolve the symbols you are left with, starting with any non-Biff symbols first. In an influence love challenge, each love and wild symbol moves the love meter cube 1 space, so in this case it would move 1, 2, 3 spaces. Just keep in mind, if the cube ever reaches the final space, it will just stop there and any extra increases would be ignored. With the beneficial dice taken care of, you now have to resolve any Biff symbols you rolled during the challenge. And these work just like resolving the Biffs on movement cards like we showed earlier in the video. These will move Biff closer to George or Lorraine, and if he's already in their space, additional symbols will move this cube further down the track. So that's how you resolve the Influence Love challenge. But remember, all challenges are resolved essentially the same way. The only thing that really changes are the symbols you need to roll and the reward that you get. How you flip tiles, roll dice, resolve abilities, and Biffs all works the same. So as we go through the other challenges, I'll just focus on the elements that are different. There are 3 essential parts that you need to gather for the DeLorean, which are represented by these 3 tiles. If you attempt a challenge at one of their locations and then roll the number of knowledge and or wild symbols shown here, then you obtain it. Flip it over and then move it directly to Doc Brown's house here. Collecting all 3 of the parts will be necessary to win the game. All right, let's move to another type of challenge. If you're in the space with the DeLorean, then for each speed or wild rolled, you move it 1 space forward. So in this case, 1, 2, 3 spaces. Now if this causes it to leave your location, then from here I can no longer move the DeLorean. I or another player would first have to use an action to move to this new location and then perform another challenge to advance it further. Once you've advanced the DeLorean to this space, you cannot move it any further until you have all 3 of the DeLorean parts collected at Doc Brown's house. Once they are here, then the next time you move the car, you can continue advancing it along its path. Now we come to opportunity challenges. If you're on a space with one of these and you satisfy any requirements that it might list, for example here it requires George, and sure enough George is in this space, then you can attempt to resolve the opportunity by getting these results during the challenge. And if you do, then you gain its reward, which is listed here at the bottom. Anytime a reward shows this P symbol, it means you draw that number of power tiles from the face down stack. You then add it to your board, exhausted, face down, which means you won't be able to use it this turn. Although you only have spaces for 8 power tiles, you can collect more than that. Just set the extras to the side. At the end of your turn, you'll discard back down to 8, as we'll see later. Some rewards like this one will tell you to take an item, in this case the cassette player. You then find that item in the deck here, and then place it exhausted face down by your mat. You won't be able to use this until it's flipped face up, which happens at the end of the round, as we'll see later. There is no limit to the number of items you can collect while playing, and if you do have any that are face up, then during a turn, you can use each one once by resolving its text here and then flipping it face down. With that understood, let's get back to the opportunity challenges, because once you've collected all of its rewards, you discard it and then draw a new one and place it in its indicated location. In this way, there will always be 3 opportunity cards on the board at a time. If you're at the same location as a trouble card, then you can attempt its challenge, and if you get the symbols shown here, you're successful and you gain its reward. Then you discard the card. However, you do not replace it like we did with opportunity cards. Finally, we have the Biff challenge. If you're at his location, then for every successful courage or wild that you roll, Biff will be affected. For the first successful symbol, lay his figure over to show that he's been knocked down. For each other success rolled, place a knockdown token beside him to a maximum of 3, and any extra successes against him are just ignored. From now on, any time you would resolve a Biff symbol, instead of moving his figure, you remove a knockdown token instead. And once they are all gone, a Biff symbol will stand him up, and after that, these symbols act as normal again. Just note, if Biff is already knocked down, you can't challenge him in another fight until he's standing back up. And those are all the challenges. Next though, let's talk about your character's special power. You'll find it printed here, and you can use it once at any time during your action phase, and it doesn't require spending any of your power tiles. This is a cooperative game, and we know that we're all working towards the same goals. But you can even help each other during particular challenges, assisting each other with power tiles that you might have. When you're performing a challenge, as long as you roll at least 1 die, other players at the same location can help out by exhausting their own face-up power tiles at the same time, allowing them to roll dice and add them to your result. Just keep in mind you are still limited by the total number of dice in the game when resolving a challenge. However, other players can also assist with any face-up items they have as well if they want. The catch is that if you use your power tiles on another player's turn, then they will still be exhausted when it comes back to your turn, so you won't be able to use them. Sometimes though, this is worth the sacrifice, particularly if you're facing an important or difficult challenge. Okay, so now we know all the things that you can do on your turn, and once you're done using as many power tiles and items as you can or wish to, your turn is over. You now flip over all of your exhausted items and power tiles, and at this point, if you have more than 8 power tiles, you discard any that you want to until you have only 8. Then the next player in clockwise order goes, and turns will continue like this until the game ends in one of 2 possible ways. One is if the 6th and final section of the McFly photo is turned face down. The game ends right then, and the players all lose. The other way the game will end is if the turn tracker cube moves on to the final space of the track here, representing 10:04 p.m. when lightning strikes the clock tower. At that point, if the love meter cube is on a space with a heart, indicating that Marty's parents have fallen in love, and the DeLorean is on any one of these 3 spaces, the players all win. Now, if the car is on another space, or if the love meter cube is not on a heart space, then when the clock hits 10:04, the players all lose. And that's how you play Back to the Future, Back in Time. If you have any questions at all about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. But until next time, thanks for watching.